stories.
Please don't kill me. I have a lot to live for.
When I was 18, I was living in a small town. I was friends with the ratty skaters around, and they helped connect with this dude who sold weed. He was 29 at the time and gave me pretty good deals and lived nearby. I wasn't driving at the time, so this was convenient for me. His name was Max. Max has always struck me as a weird dude, but I honestly quite liked his weirdness. Not in a romantic way or anything, but I liked weird people. We had normal weed buying interactions that never lasted more than 10 minutes. Buy some weed, maybe smoke a bowl, that's it. He'd often tell me he could drop it off at my house, but I never let him because, as I said before, he was weird. I wasn't afraid of him, but was definitely aware that he and his offers to deliver were weird. One day, in May 2018, I was invited to a bonfire by the same ratty skaters that introduced me to this guy. I had no idea he'd be there, nor was it important to me at all. I brought the guy I was dating at the time. I said hey to everyone, including Max. We stayed for a couple hours, and some of us played some music on their guitars. Nearing the time I was leaving the bonfire around 11 p.m., Max was getting upset about something and threw his guitar into the bonfire. I didn't know what he was angry or upset about and paid no mind to it. This happened as I was leaving with the guy I was dating. I went to bed and woke up to paragraphs on paragraphs of crazy texts from Max, ranging from 1 a.m. to 5 a.m., like a constant stream of texts stating things such as, "You know how much I loved you. You're a cruel cunt. How could you go back and forth between saying I would give you the world if you'd let me, and you really deserve him though." He said really scary things like, "You are a predator and you should be snubbed out. Just wait." And "You are stuck. I will either love you or hate you to the fullest extent of my powers. Behold, right now, I pay the worst death on you, that fuckboy bitch." To top it all off, he said, "Losing you is like losing a mother to me," and told me to tell him I never loved him and that I wouldn't hear from him again if I did. So that's what I did. I said, "I never loved you. Do not message me again." And I left it at that. I didn't get a response, nor did I care to get one. Max had never expressed any romantic interests, never asked me out or anything. This was all out of nowhere, and he was 11 years older than me. I was barely 18. That night, he cut his long hair off and posted photos naked on Facebook, curled up in a fetal position, talking about being a statue of shame. It's as if he had had a breakdown, but I had no intention of causing that. I did not think that I would even offend anyone by bringing the guy I was seeing, and everyone else seemed to like the guy I'd brought. About a week later, Max texted me pretty late at night and asked if I had seen the flowers he spread across my sidewalk, saying that he stole every flower in the vicinity of my neighborhood that night. I asked how he knew where I lived, and I said I haven't seen the flowers, so he must have had the wrong house. I also told him that he shouldn't be doing things like that. I never felt anything for him, and so on. He told me that he had heard I lived on the same block as another one of the skater guys who were both friends with him, and he wasn't wrong. The skater guy that I lived by was on the other side of the block, and I never walked that way, so I never saw the flowers. I blocked his number and didn't hear from him again for weeks. Weeks later, I woke up after a rough night, and there was loads of flowers on the sidewalk right outside my house, along with the little banquet at the top of my walkway. I was pissed. I wasn't scared yet, and stupidly, I unblocked his number and texted him asking why the fuck there were flowers outside of my house. This confirmed that this indeed was where I lived. I still, to this day, feel so stupid for texting him and making it known that after weeks he had found my house. He responded saying, sounds nice. This was me. I bitched him out basically and blocked his number again. About a week later, I was out of town and my roommate texted me a photo of a heart with a peace sign inside of it and my name written under it, drawn in chalk outside my house. When I got back into town, I went to the courthouse and began the process of getting a stalking order against him. When I left the courthouse, I went to Max's work and told him he needed to stop this behavior, that he was stalking me. He looked me in the eyes with no facial expression and said, "If you do not leave, I am calling the cops." I got angry and said loudly, "Call the fucking cops! I was just talking to them about you!" and left his work in a rage. Soon after this, I began driving again. I once drove by him and he noticed it was me. The next day, I woke up with my car covered in flowers. I presented my case to the judge and she put the stalking order in place. He was served with it by police officers, and I thought that was that, and he wouldn't be bothering me again. I was wrong. After the stalking order was served, he made several other chalk messages on my sidewalk, left random gifts for me like chalk, and beheaded my little pony heads on beer bottles. I always brought these things to the police station, but they said I needed to catch him doing it, take a photo, and get security cameras. So I got a security camera and really hoped I would catch him. It turned out my security camera was stupid, and I couldn't just watch the videos it took, but had to skip through second by second by hand. It was an impossible task. I was terrified of leaving my house at night at this point. I never had my curtains open anymore, and I was so frustrated that my livelihood was being taken away from me. Ultimately, I blocked his number in hopes that he would text me directly, violating the stalking order, and after a few days, it worked. He sent me a weird text saying something like, "Forgive me. We are charming. This is harming. Let us try again." By now, it's September 2018, and he finally goes to jail. He is facing up to a year in jail, and has to stay there until our court date. I finally start calming down. I am able to go outside at night, even if just to get in my car. I let myself have my curtains open sometimes. I am starting to feel alive again. Right when I start feeling secure in my small town life again, someone posts bail, and he was released after only 3 months in jail, and I went back to living in fear. We still had court dates coming up, and I was optimistic that he would serve more time for ruining my life for so long. His lawyer kept pushing the court date back to gather evidence, and after about 6 months of pushing it back, the state decided he wouldn't do anything more and closed the case, basically. I had to move out of town 3+ hours away at this point, so he didn't actually have an option to continue this behavior. Living in a new place, I feel safe. I can walk at night and don't have to have my curtains closed all the time. It's been over a year since they decided to close the case. About a month ago, he began responding to my friends' Instagram stories, friends that live here in this small town, telling them how fond he is of me, etc. I have always had him blocked, but my Instagram isn't private, so he must have found them that way. I have since changed my account to private, and he hasn't messaged any more friends of mine. I refuse to be fearful now. The way I was then, he will never find where I live or where I work now. However, my life is forever changed after this experience. I will always be more aware of people and their weird energy. I will always close my curtains early in the evening and make sure all the windows and doors are locked. I will always live in a little bit of fear. Maybe not of him, but of it happening again. He ruined my life for a year, and I truly wish he had gotten that time in jail. He deserves it. So Max, let's not meet again. A couple of years ago, when I was in high school, my friends and I were big into paranormal. We lived in shit-fuck Indiana, so there isn't really a lot going on around here. There were 6 of us, 4 boys and 2 girls, myself and Quinn, Donnie, Chris, Larry, and Steven. There were more to our little clique, but the rest of them didn't want to fuck around in cemeteries at 1 a.m. So, one summer night, I get a text from Donnie asking if Quinn and I wanted to go check out this place around Brazil. Quinn said yeah, so I said yeah, and in the hour, we were all piled into Donnie's truck. Now the truck has enough room for 5 people, 2 front, 3 back, and one of us had to ride in the bed. It's Indiana. We don't give a shit here. We'll die on the highway flying out of a pickup bed. Why not? So we head down to I-70 and pull off into Brazil exit, and Donnie takes us down to this road I don't recognize. We keep going sort of south and then land on this gravel road. The road turns to dirt because Chris didn't want to ride alone in the back. Steven was with him. So it was me and Quinn in the back seat, Larry and Donnie up front, and Chris and Steven out in the back. And they keep sticking their hands through the small sliding windows and poking us in the back of the head like 17-year-old fuckboys do. After maybe 20 minutes, we get to this long, overgrown driveway sort of road. It's gravel, but you can tell it's unkept and never traveled on. We go down it, avoiding a ton of potholes, and finally make it under this railroad bridge. There is a shit ton of graffiti everywhere, and it's just all around not looking good. So I hear Chris and Steven start whispering and stuff about it being spooky. Donnie turns off the truck and says we should get out. Now, all the graffiti was your typical bullshit 14-year-old white boy satanic shit, so I wasn't going to play that game. I'd rather go kick up graveyard dirt than deal with getting my skin flayed by redneck Satanists. So Quinn and I say no, and we said we should go check out 4 Arcs, because that's not far away, a little north of Brazil, I believe. Donnie eventually agrees to it, so he starts backing out of the tunnel. Chris and Steven start screaming, and in the mirror you can see someone standing at the end of the tunnel opening. They start trying to climb through the little pothole-sized window, and Quinn and I are pulling them to help them. And this dude starts Olympic sprinting at the truck, and you can see in the brake lights that he has a machete. So Donnie just floors it in reverse and almost hits that dude. Our windows were down, and you could hear him smash into the wall to avoid us. And he spins us around, and we take off. We never went back there, and I never heard anyone having a good experience there either. Last summer, the 6 of us go out again to this place called Edna Collins Bridge. It's not a super popular place, I guess. I don't know. It's near Clinton Falls and Brick Chapel, maybe an hour from Crawfordsville, and 20 minutes from Green Castle. We had been to both Brick Chapel and Collins a few times, so it wasn't a big deal to us, just somewhere to fuck around. Now, if you've ever been to a local haunt, I can assume that, like us, teenagers flock there to fuck with people. I've heard stories of people hiding in the bridge and knocking on car windows in the dark, etc. But we had been there multiple times and had never seen anyone do that. Just people parking on the bridge and doing the ritual, turn off car, beep 3 times, wait for spook. So Donnie is driving, Quinn is up front because they're dating, and the 4 of us decide to ride in the bed because the last time we did it, it's not like 2 people almost got killed by a machete or anything. We're going down 36 and pull onto the road that leads to the bridge. We eventually get there and notice there is this blue car pulled off near the bridge. Okay, probably kids. It's parked on the northern side of the bridge after you cross over. So we just roll across the bridge and glance at it. There isn't anyone inside, so we assume they are off fucking around like we plan to be. We go down the road and turn around at the first house, right off the bridge, and pull back through and head back to 36 and go fuck around at Bridge Chapel Cemetery. 2 hours later, it's now fully dark and maybe 10 p.m. We go back and the car is gone and it's empty, so we pull off before the bridge and start walking around it. And looking at the new graffiti, there are flowers in the middle of the bridge, kinda like a bouquet. Donnie picks them up and gives them to Quinn, who throws them into a gap into the woods, into the water. Immediately after that, we hear this splashing noise, like from under the bridge. We all get really quiet, and Larry, being the big fuck that he is, starts yelling and asking what ghosts were there and how ghosts were pussies. Then the splashing gets really loud, and we see the shadow climb out over the guardrail at the end of the bridge. Then another one on the other side. Then thump, some fucking dudes drop out of the rafters right in the middle of us. Quinn screams and I stumble back into Larry, who just picks me up, and Donnie is screaming at the dude who dropped down next to us. The dude starts screaming back about how we were trespassing. We weren't, it's a public road. And he starts screaming how he is going to fucking kill us. In the moonlight, you can see that he is way older than us, probably 40s. He is spitting and frothing at the mouth. Chris immediately says he's a meth head, so we all take off back to the truck, and the three guys chase us. For some reason, Steven thinks, oh, I'm going to get in the bed of the truck, and then flops in, and then so does the skinny meth head, and they start wrestling in the truck, and finally Steven throws him out, and Donnie peels off, and we go home. A few months later, we decided to return. Unlike the last time, there wasn't anyone there, and we went driving the day because the boys were wimps. The area is actually very pretty during the day, so we fucked around and crawled under the bridge. Down there was graffiti, typical, but there was this patch of loose dirt that Larry found. He kicked it and opened it, and inside was a folding knife with some sort of dried stuff on it, probably blood, stained clothing, and 3 different models of cell phones. We never went back.